Ever since my husband's company found its footing, he morphed into a stranger. His affair with another woman became brazen, as if he didn't care about hiding it anymore. When I confronted him, he dismissed my concerns with a mocking laugh. "You're worthless, living off my earnings. Be thankful I even bother with you," he spat, his contempt oozing with every word. "Get a job if you're so unhappy." Defiant, I accepted his challenge. Landing a position at his family's company, I plotted my retaliation against Michael. I'm Karen, once content as a 34-year-old homemaker, while Michael, my 36-year-old husband, managed a printing business. Our romance sparked in the corridors of our workplace. He was in sales and I in illustrations. Our love story culminated in marriage when I was 26. Once we settled into our routine, he made the bold move of resigning from his job, proposing the idea of launching a new venture together. Uncertain, I sought counsel from our trusted business partner, Bob, with whom we shared past collaborations. Bob, a seasoned CEO known for his diverse business ventures and adeptness in advertising, readily lent his support. Bob backed our endeavor and even contributed funds. I recounted, "Karen's illustrations have always impressed me," Bob remarked, his praise leaving me humbled. With gratitude, we vowed to steer our company to triumph. Just the two of us, I affirmed to Bob as we embarked on our entrepreneurial journey. Initially, we grappled with the constraints of a cramped apartment. However, with the ascent of our company, we upgraded to a sleek high-rise condominium. It was then that my husband broached the idea of me focusing solely on homemaking. "I'll hire someone else for the illustrations. Eventually, I need your full support," he asserted, his words leaving me torn. Reluctantly, I confided in Bob, our steadfast investor. "I regret to inform you, but I must step away from illustration work," I disclosed to Bob. His empathy was palpable. "It pains me to think I won't have the pleasure of witnessing Karen's illustrations anymore. Yet if you ever decide to return to it, just say the word. I'll stand by you," Bob reassured me. "Thank you, truly," I expressed my gratitude. And thus, I embraced the role of homemaker to bolster my husband's aspirations. However, my passion for drawing persisted, finding solace in sharing my illustrations on Instagram. The unexpected warmth of response has become my clandestine delight. As my husband's business flourished, our lifestyle mirrored its success. His investments yielded opulent returns, evident in the acquisition of a new car and bespoke suits from prestigious labels. While I deemed these indulgences excessive, I recognized their significance in his role as the company's figurehead. Despite his demanding schedule, he remained steadfast in our tradition of sharing dinner at home. It was a solemn pact, a sanctuary carved out for just the two of us amidst the chaos. Over these meals, he divulged the company's forthcoming ventures, a privilege that filled me with contentment. Supporting his ambitions became my source of joy. I once believed our harmonious routine would endure indefinitely. Despite the company's continued prosperity, subtle shifts began to emerge in my husband's demeanor. Gone were the animated discussions about business during our dinners. "How's everything at the company?" I inquired, met with lukewarm responses. "Everything's fine," he'd mutter, his enthusiasm conspicuously absent. Persistently, I probed for more details, only to be met with terse rebuttals. "Don't pry, you wouldn't understand. You're always here. I shouldn't have to explain every little detail." His words pierced through me, a stark departure from the understanding and camaraderie we once shared. I attempted to rationalize his behavior as fatigue or stress, but that night, as he silently retreated to our room after dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in. This pattern persisted, with my husband increasingly opting for dinners away from home. Feeble justifications of social obligations or client meetings replaced our once sacred mealtime together. Despite my waiting patiently, delaying my own dinner, his absence grew routine, his excuses dwindling to nothingness. Confrontation only invited his wrath, a stark departure from the partner I once knew. I felt reduced to a mere servant in my own home, the weight of his indifference crushing me to tears. We once weathered the storms of entrepreneurship together, hand in hand. Now, I found myself relegated beneath even his employees, my sacrifices met with scorn rather than appreciation. My domestic duties weren't born out of a passion for homemaking. They were a testament to my unwavering commitment to his aspirations. Yet any semblance of gratitude had long since vanished from his eyes. In his absence, I find solace in my illustrations, a sanctuary where stress dissipates and creativity flourishes. With each stroke, my online following burgeons, their supportive comments a balm to my weary soul. Among them, a familiar name emerges, Bob's. Bob extends an offer to collaborate again. A glimmer of hope, I muse, buoyed by the prospect. Without this beacon, I might have succumbed to despair. As our shared dinners faded into memory, a palpable chasm widened between my husband and me. Suspicion crept in, fueled by the faint scent of perfume lingering on his abandoned suit jacket, a fragrance foreign to him. When confronted, he flippantly dismissed it as a triviality, a smirk playing on his lips. His nonchalance stoked the embers of my long-suppressed sorrow, igniting them into a fiery rage. Enough with the charade, I resolved. Left alone in the confines of our home, relegated to mundane chores, the gnawing fear of societal abandonment gnawed at my sanity with each passing day. My friends could only offer envy, while my parents dismissed my concerns as trivial luxuries. Left to grapple with my turmoil, alone, I bore the weight of my suspicions in solitude. Then, one fateful evening, my husband returned home inebriated. Amidst my desperate efforts to tend to him, a damning discovery awaited, a crimson imprint adorning his shirt collar. Its presence could not be dismissed as innocent, a glaring testament to another woman's trespass. In that moment, I unearthed undeniable evidence of my husband's betrayal. With resolve coursing through my veins, I confronted him the following day, brandishing the damning garment. "Where were you last night, and what is this?" I demanded, pointing to the incriminating mark. Though caught off guard by the lipstick stain, my husband remained eerily composed in the face of my accusation. "I was out with friends at a bar. Must have happened then, right? You'd need to take off your jacket for that. Didn't you notice?" he retorted, his words laced with defiance. Unconvinced by his feeble alibi, I responded, "I don't recall." With a sudden motion, my husband rose from his seat, his hand connecting with my cheek in a searing slap. Stunned, I stumbled backward, reeling from the unexpected blow, the sting of pain radiating across my skin. "When will you understand? Who do you think is providing for us?" he spat before retreating to his sanctuary. I watched his departure, tears tracing silent paths down my cheeks. In that moment, the truth struck with brutal clarity. My husband's love had waned, leaving behind a cavernous void. I was left shattered by the cold reality of our fractured relationship. From that day forth, my husband's temper became increasingly volatile. His displeasure manifested in violent outbursts, whether it be at a meal I had prepared or any perceived infraction. The once tender moments of our marriage were now eclipsed by a shadow of fear and uncertainty. "This tastes atrocious. Do you even pay attention to what I eat? If you want to keep being my wife, you better sharpen your culinary skills," my husband berated before storming out of the room. "I'll dine out. Eating this would sabotage my productivity," he declared. I trailed after him, desperation evident in my voice. "Please wait. I want to prepare meals you enjoy. But you're never home or communicate with me. How can I cater to your tastes like that?" My husband clicked his tongue in irritation at my plea. "Should we just divorce then? I'm fine with it. I can manage without you, but can you survive without me?" he sneered, his gaze piercing through me. "You're nothing but a leech, living off my earnings," he spat, his words a venomous assault. In that moment, a realization dawned upon me. This man was beyond redemption. The compassionate husband I once knew was a relic of the past. "Then I'll find a job," I declared. "What? What's gotten into you?" My husband's voice echoed with incredulity. "I'll strive for financial independence too," I affirmed. My husband erupted into laughter, doubling over. "Who would you consider hiring someone as powerless as you?" he taunted. Suppressing my rising fury, I maintained composure. Reacting with anger would only escalate the abuse. If I couldn't win through strength, I needed to strategize differently. "Fine, do as you wish, but don't neglect your household duties. With your meager earnings, I won't tolerate a neglected home," my husband dismissed, exiting our dwelling. Swiftly taking action, I enlisted the services of a detective to uncover evidence of my husband's infidelity. The findings were damning, a trove of incriminating photographs capturing my husband's dalliances with extravagantly dressed women, reveling in drinks and discreet hotel entrances. It was a mosaic of betrayal, with not just one, but several women ensnared in his web of deceit. Yet as I surveyed the evidence and listened to the detective's report, a peculiar calm washed over me. There was no rage, no sorrow, only a pragmatic acknowledgement of the situation. The ostentatious behavior that had once irked me now served as a conduit for undeniable proof. 1 week later, adorned in my finest attire, I ascended to a restaurant atop a luxurious hotel. Despite my efforts, I felt out of place amidst the opulent clientele. With a hesitant step, I approached the reserved table where Bob awaited. My apologies for the delay, I offered, but Bob's warm smile assuaged my apprehension as he motioned for me to take a seat. Karen, no need for apologies. I've been eagerly anticipating our meeting. Your presence is worth the wait, Bob reassured, casting aside any notion of inconvenience. Bob had played a pivotal role in our journey to independence, generously backing us financially when my husband and I decided to venture out on our own. Now, he held a prominent position as the president of my husband's parent company. I'm immensely grateful for your unwavering support during our leap to independence. Your confidence in us meant the world. I expressed my gratitude. Bob chuckled warmly. It was a no-brainer for me. After all, our history together made it an easy decision, he replied. It's evident the company is thriving under your guidance, I observed. A hint of seriousness crossed Bob's features at my remark. Yes, it's progressing well, but today our focus is on your acceptance of my invitation, correct? He redirected, his smile returning to reassure me. Yes, indeed, I affirmed, straightening in my seat and extending a warm greeting. Reflecting on our past interactions, I recalled Bob's genuine admiration for my illustrations. He had been instrumental in providing funding for our venture into independence, recognizing the value I brought to the table. Moreover, he had been the lone voice cautioning against the path of becoming a homemaker. Though we had lost touch, Bob's reemergence in my life through social media rekindled our connection, leading to regular exchanges via email and text messages. You always had a keen understanding of my illustrations, didn't you? I remarked. I've been a fan of your work for quite some time. I'm thrilled you never gave up on illustrating. Your decision to reach out to me caught me off guard, though, Bob confessed. Bob had extended offers for me to join his team as an illustrator on multiple occasions, but my domestic responsibilities had always stood in the way. However, after much contemplation, I had recently made the decision to accept his proposal. In a recent conversation with my husband, Bob had seemed hesitant yet determined, and now, as he locked eyes with me, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Bob's words hit me like a bolt from the blue. Michael's company has garnered quite a negative reputation, he divulged. What? That's surprising. Michael always spoke so highly of his job. I never imagined this, I mused, taken aback by the revelation. I've been closely involved for a while now. But as the company expanded, the quality of their work took a nosedive. Missed deadlines, errors, and he seems oblivious to it all. Bob lamented. Is this reputation widespread? I inquired, a knot forming in my stomach. The company's rapid growth initially attracted positive attention. However, it's now under scrutiny for all the wrong reasons. There are even whispers of unsavory affiliations, Bob disclosed, his tone tinged with concern. I had no idea. I've been so out of touch with Michael's professional life, I realized, a pang of unease settling in. To lighten the mood, Bob chimed in cheerfully, You'll be creating illustrations for us from now on. No need to outsource anymore. It's a significant asset for our company. I appreciate your understanding and flexibility regarding my family commitments. I express my gratitude. No worries at all. We believe in maintaining a healthy work-life balance for our employees, Bob reassured with a smile. And so, I embarked on my journey working for Bob. With my sole focus on illustration tasks, there was no need for me to commute to the office. Bob graciously granted me the opportunity to work remotely, allowing me to seamlessly juggle my household responsibilities. The sheer joy of creating art, once confined to a hobby, now bloomed into a fulfilling profession. However, amidst the satisfaction of my work, I couldn't shake the longing to have more control over my time, to pursue my passion without constraints imposed by domestic duties and supporting my husband. With my newfound income, I believed I could sustain myself independently. However, as I diligently worked, one day, the abrupt sound of the door slamming jolted me from my concentration. Rushing to the hallway, I was met with my husband's furious gaze. "You traitor," he seethed. Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to comprehend his sudden outburst. "To think my own wife would snatch away my job," he spat. In that moment, realization dawned upon me. My husband's ire stemmed from my collaboration with Bob. which had opened doors to additional contracts with companies affiliated with his own. This was my retaliation, my way of reclaiming power from the one who had belittled me. But irony must have been galling for him, to have his livelihood threatened by the very person he had scorned. You have no authority to dictate my actions. I'm simply carrying out my duties with your explicit consent, I asserted, holding my ground as my husband's anger simmered. If you feel compelled, go ahead and strike me. I won't hesitate to involve the authorities, I declared, unyielding in the face of his aggression. My company's downfall is on your hands. What exactly are you trying to achieve? He accused, his frustration palpable. This has nothing to do with me, I rebutted, resolute in my stance. Retrieving the divorce papers from the adjoining room, I handed them to my husband with a steady hand. We're no longer bound by matrimony. Let's not prolong this any further, I stated firmly, severing the ties that bound us together. You're divorcing me over my company's struggles. You're just after my money, aren't you? I retorted, stung by his accusation. I could have ended this marriage whenever I please, but I chose to wait. Now that I'm successful and earning, suddenly it's convenient for you to walk away. Wait a moment. Let's discuss the future of the company first before we rush into divorce. We founded it together, remember? You're the one who ousted me from that company, my husband interjected, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. I severed all ties with that company, and I intend to seek proper compensation, I asserted firmly, unyielding in my resolve. Michael's frustration was evident, his agitation palpable as he gnawed on his lip in vexation. How shameless can you be? You have no right to talk about compensation when you're the one initiating the divorce. Do you even realize how many times you've hurt me and your affairs? I had undeniable proof, I retorted, brandishing the incriminating photographs. As he beheld the evidence of his infidelity, my husband's facade crumbled, and he sank to his knees, pleading with desperation. Please, I beg of you. The company's on the brink of collapse. I can't handle the added burden of compensation or a divorce. I need your support now more than ever. Everyone has abandoned me the moment they caught wind of our troubles. You're the only one left, he implored, his voice quivering with raw vulnerability. I dismissed his desperate plea as utterly futile. Gathering only my essentials and work materials, I departed from the house without a backward glance. My return home only occurred once the divorce proceedings were concluded, solely to retrieve my belongings. By then, my husband's company was hemorrhaging mistakes, and he found himself deserted by all. Reduced to pleading for funds to compensate me, he spent his days in a pitiful state. In stark contrast, I embraced solitude, forging a livelihood through my beloved craft of illustration. With each stroke of the pen, I accumulated wealth, all while upholding my integrity, a stark contrast to my ex-husband's downfall. Having made the decision to marry my boyfriend Ethan and paying a visit to his family's abode for introductions on the appointed day, I encountered a startling rejection from all his kin. Their chilling words echoed, "Never reach out to us again. Your voice is unwelcome." It seemed their upbringing, steeped in adulation for their physical charms, had fostered an environment of harshness and envy towards those who possessed what they lacked. Regrettably, I found myself the unwitting target of their jealousy, with even my father-in-law and brother-in-law silently aligning with their rejection. Yet, several months passed, I had the sweet satisfaction of orchestrating a masterful revenge upon these four. My name is Amy, age 27, now basking in serene and joyful days encircled by love for my husband, our cherubic child, and my own parents. The genesis of this newfound contentment traces back 3 years, when I was just 24. It all began with Ethan, my former colleague turned beau, who proposed to me. Bonding over our shared love for cinema, our friendship blossomed into romance through countless movie dates on our days off. Ethan's gentle demeanor and universal amiability endeared him to many at work. Averse to conflict, he possessed a forgiving nature that endeared him to all. From the moment I joined the company, Ethan intrigued me, so when he finally mustered the courage to ask me out, I was elated, eagerly anticipating each day at work. During moments of professional missteps and personal lows, he offered unwavering support, fostering a natural desire within me. I want to spend my life with this man. Ethan harbored ambitions of launching his own business down the line, and I was eager to stand by his side, offering unwavering support every step of the way. When he proposed to me, my heart soared with joy. There was no hesitation. I accepted his proposal without a second thought, resolved to spend my life with him. The weekend following Ethan's heartfelt proposal, we promptly journeyed to my family's abode. Introducing Ethan to my parents and sharing our plans to wed, Ethan's warmth and charm extended effortlessly to my family, effortlessly bonding with my father over drinks and conversation. My parents, enchanted by Ethan's demeanor, readily embraced our union, reveling in our shared happiness. Witnessing Ethan effortlessly blend into my family dynamic, I couldn't help but feel blessed to have him in my life. As the weekend waned, our sights turned to meeting Ethan's family. While I realized I hadn't gleaned much about them from Ethan, I brushed aside any concerns, presuming his independence might have led to infrequent contact with his parents. The eve of our visit, during a casual phone call with Ethan discussing our plans for the morrow, he cryptically mentioned, "My parents might come off a bit peculiar, but don't dwell on it too much." His words sparked a twinge of apprehension, but with the early morning looming, I chose to set aside any worries and retire for the night around 10 p.m. The following day, Ethan and I rendered his vows at the station, embarking together towards his family residence. It marked my inaugural visit to his familial abode, and despite my attempts to quell my nerves, a persistent jitteriness lingered throughout the morning. Walking alongside Ethan, his words seemed to blur amidst the frantic thudding of my heart. Before us loomed a majestic mansion, reminiscent of a fairy tale castle. The sprawling garden only intensified my trepidation as I pondered Ethan's upbringing in such opulent surroundings. Yet, his reassuring smile offered some solace as he gently remarked, "Feeling nervous? It's all right, let's proceed." Upon a grand entrance, my mother-in-law greeted us warmly, her graceful demeanor and impeccable appearance exuding elegance. Her welcoming demeanor momentarily eased my apprehension. Once inside, the rest of the family, save for my mother-in-law, greeted me with smiles, alleviating some of my unease. Finding myself warmly embraced, I settled onto the sofa, engaging in pleasant conversation over dinner before proudly announcing our engagement to all present. Ethan's family beamed with delight, particularly my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who expressed their excitement at welcoming me into the family with endearing words. "We're thrilled to have such a charming addition to our family." Their warm reception touched me deeply, fostering a sense of belonging. As the pleasant conversation flowed, I learned more about Ethan's family. His father managed a successful company specializing in package tours, while his brother, an executive director within the same company, harbored aspirations of eventually assuming its leadership. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law gracefully balanced their roles as homemakers, enriching their lives with pursuits like dance classes and flower arrangement lessons. My sister-in-law, radiating confidence with her impeccable appearance, left a lasting impression. Meanwhile, my father-in-law's kindness and affable demeanor put me at ease, his engaging conversation effortlessly quelling any nerves. I found solace in his amiable presence, genuinely grateful for his warmth. However, the harmonious atmosphere was briefly disrupted by a question from my father-in-law, inquiring about my employment status at the same company as Ethan. I clarified that I held a permanent position, having joined as a regular employee following my graduation from Harvard University. His pride in my accomplishments was palpable, his admiration evident as he praised my achievements. The ensuing praise from both my father-in-law and Ethan left me feeling slightly embarrassed yet profoundly touched by their words of admiration and support. In reality, my journey led me to a prestigious university in the United States, where I dedicated myself to studies even at the expense of sleep during my high school years. My parents, despite limited means, toiled relentlessly to afford my college education. Fueled by a deep-seated determination to secure a promising career and ultimately repay my parents' sacrifices, I poured my heart into every endeavor. Engrossed in lively conversation with others, I couldn't help but notice the sudden silence from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. A pang of apprehension gripped me, prompting a frantic search for a change of topic. Observing a striking arrangement of flowers adorning the table, I ventured a compliment only to be met with a sharp retort from my mother-in-law, questioning the sincerity of my interest in housewives' pastimes, given my professional stature. Bewildered by her abrupt shift in demeanor, I struggled to comprehend the underlying hostility. Echoing her sentiments, my sister-in-law insinuated that my academic background might lead me to dismiss their pursuits as trivial. I never intended such implications, yet found myself at a loss for words, choking back tears of frustration. Ethan swiftly intervened, rebuking their baseless assumptions and defending my character. Though his words offered solace, I remained mute, unable to muster a response, my gaze fixed downward. Surveying the room, I noted my father-in-law, inebriated and slumbering on the sofa since noon, alongside my disinterested brother-in-law, idly scrolling through his phone. Sensing the palpable tension, Ethan tactfully suggested bringing the gathering to a close, offering a much-needed reprieve from the stifling atmosphere. As we made our way back to the station, Ethan offered his apologies, explaining, "I'm sorry about today. My mom and sister have quite the pride. They're particularly touchy about their high school education." Later, Ethan revealed that his mother-in-law had worked at a flower shop straight out of high school, where his father-in-law had become enamored with her at first sight. A captivating beauty, she drew numerous customers to the shop daily. Through persistent pursuit, his father-in-law won her affections, and they eventually married, with him still seemingly wrapped around her finger to this day. Similarly, his sister-in-law, a striking woman, had reconnected with Ethan's brother-in-law at a high school reunion in their early 20s. Enchanted by her transformation, he pursued her relentlessly until they became a couple. Like his father-in-law, Ethan's brother-in-law appeared to acquiesce to his wife's wishes without question. Despite my advanced education, I struggled to comprehend their insecurities. They were both beautiful women with devoted husbands who adored and protected them. Yet, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease, questioning whether marriage would truly be as harmonious as I had envisioned. Nonetheless, with the family's blessings secured, we forged ahead with wedding plans, hoping that open communication would bridge any divides. "Rest assured, Amy, I'll always stand by your side," Ethan reassured me, instilling a sense of optimism within me. After months of meticulous planning, the day before our wedding arrived, only to be disrupted by an unexpected phone call from Ethan's mother. As Ethan's voice rose in disbelief, I listened in shock to his revelation that his parents had suddenly decided not to attend the wedding due to a forgotten trip they had booked for the same day. Stunned and bewildered by this unforeseen turn of events, we attempted to reach them for an explanation to no avail, met only by the incessant ringing of unanswered calls. Perplexed by the abrupt turn of events, we hastened to Ethan's parents' house, only to find it dark and deserted, indicating their absence. I voiced my concerns to Ethan, recalling the tense atmosphere during my previous visit, questioning if I had inadvertently offended his mother and sister. Ethan attributed their demeanor to their prideful nature, acknowledging that highly intelligent individuals often bore stubborn tendencies, but he remained uncertain of any specific grievances they held. Puzzled by his father's absence as well, Ethan explained that both his father and brother-in-law were inclined to defer to their wives, likely aligning with them to avoid discord. His distress was palpable, leaving me at a loss for words. Ultimately, our attempts to contact Ethan's family proved futile, compelling us to proceed with the wedding sans their presence. We were left bewildered by the unfolding events, questioning the reasons behind their absence. Even if they genuinely forgot about their trip, I struggled to comprehend why they would prioritize it over their son's wedding. Upon learning of Ethan's family's absence, my own parents expressed understanding, though their expressions betrayed a hint of complexity, burdening me with a sense of guilt for causing them distress on what should have been a joyous occasion. During the reception, murmurs circulated among our guests, questioning the absence of Ethan's parents. Even our boss, who graciously offered a toast, inquired about their whereabouts, leaving us grappling for an appropriate response. Faced with the dilemma of revealing the truth, we opted to deflect inquiries by attributing their absence to illness. What was meant to be a day of celebration turned into one fraught with mental exhaustion. Days later, when Ethan and I visited his parents to relay the events of the ceremony, his mother's nonchalant demeanor and lack of remorse stung deeply. Suppressing my sadness to maintain familial harmony, I responded with a strained smile, concealing the hurt that lingered within. Ethan's voice cut through the tension like a knife, his words echoing with a mixture of disbelief and frustration. "Canceling the day before the wedding, with all our relatives absent, is that even acceptable? If you had no intention of attending, you shouldn't have accepted the invitation in the first place." His sister-in-law's response only added fuel to the fire. I would have attended if Amy wasn't the bride, she declared coldly, leaving me utterly bewildered, my head spinning with confusion. Before I could make sense of her words, Ethan's mother-in-law launched her own accusation, attempting to deflect blame onto me. Don't lay all the blame on us. I wanted to witness my son's special day, but Amy ruined it. I'm a victim here too. I demand an apology. Ethan, sensing my shock, rallied to my defense. How can you blame Amy? She's done nothing wrong, he retorted, his voice tinged with incredulity. But the silence of Ethan's father-in-law, until now, was ominous. When he finally spoke, it was with a venomous intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Enough is enough. How dare you barge in here on our day off to complain? Is that all you came for? Get out. His words were like a slap in the face, and before we could even process what was happening, we found ourselves forcibly ejected from their home. As I hastily slipped on my shoes at the entrance, my mind reeled with shock and disbelief, struggling to comprehend the sudden turn of events. A sharp sting on the sole of my foot jolted me into a panic. Ouch! I exclaimed, lifting my foot to find a caterpillar wriggling inside my shoe. Recoiling with disgust, I hastily kicked off my shoe and fled outside, releasing the creature into the open air. As I stood, one shoe on, catching my breath, I noticed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law watching, their laughter laced with a malicious edge. Are you all right? They asked, their concern ringing hollow. Eager to escape the uncomfortable situation, I mumbled an apology and made a swift exit, only to be halted by my mother-in-law's unexpected words. Amy, please refrain from involving yourself in our affairs except for weddings and funerals, she said, her tone final as she shut the door, leaving me bewildered and hurt. What had I done to deserve such treatment? All I wanted was to foster a positive relationship with Ethan's family. On the journey home, Ethan showered me with apologies, assuring me that I needn't endure any further interactions with his family. Despite his efforts to console me, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt and confusion. The revelation that my presence had caused such disdain from his mother-in-law and sister-in-law weighed heavily on my mind, leaving me questioning my worth. The next day brought a new wave of distress as my entire body erupted in intense itching. Rushing to the mirror, I was greeted with the sight of fiery red swelling covering my skin. A visit to the dermatologist revealed that the cause was caterpillar stings from the previous day. The itching was unbearable, robbing me of sleep for weeks on end. Recalling an unsettling incident at Ethan's house, where I had noticed my brother-in-law tampering with my shoes at the front door, I couldn't shake the feeling of distrust towards my in-laws. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Ethan fell ill and was hospitalized with stomach pains, diagnosed with a suspected gastric ulcer. Worried sick, I insisted he take time off work and accompanied him to the hospital for further tests, grappling with the mounting challenges that seemed to plague us relentlessly. I hesitated, recalling the blunt instruction to only reach out in the event of a wedding or funeral. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to keep Ethan's hospitalization a secret from his parents. Gathering my courage, I dialed their number, my hand trembling as the phone rang, nerves twisting my stomach into knots. The mere sound of my mother-in-law's voice filled me with a profound sense of dislike, a testament to the strained relationship that had developed between us. Hello, she answered. It's Amy. I apologize for not keeping in touch. There's something I need to tell you, I began tentatively. Ethan has been hospitalized. They suspect it might be a gastric ulcer, so he's undergoing tests, I explained, hoping for a shred of concern or empathy. A gastric ulcer, huh? Probably from overworking, she dismissed callously. Please spare me from such trivial matters. I'm busy, she added, brushing off Ethan's health concerns with callous indifference. Trivial? Don't you care about Ethan? I retorted, my frustration bubbling over. I won't bother you anymore. I'll call Ethan directly, I concluded, my voice thick with disappointment. Before I could hang up, my brother-in-law abruptly took the phone. You're too persistent. Can't you read the room? He chastised. Whether Ethan's in the hospital or not, your constant calls are irritating, he snapped before ending the call abruptly. The abrupt click of the line cutting off left me reeling, a surge of indignation coursing through me. The callous rejection from my in-laws, their harsh words cutting deeper than I had anticipated, shattered any lingering hope of reconciliation. In that moment, I made a solemn vow to myself. If they don't want me to contact them, fine. I want nothing to do with that family anymore. I'll never reach out to them again, no matter the circumstances. Following Ethan's recovery, which proved to be a mild gastric ulcer, he diligently adhered to medication, experiencing a notable improvement in his health. I recounted the entire ordeal to Ethan, who met my explanation with unwavering determination. "Let's distance ourselves from my family," he declared firmly. "The only person who matters to me now is you, Amy. If they can't accept you, then they're not family to me, regardless of blood ties." A year later, Ethan took the leap to pursue his long-standing aspiration of establishing a software sales business, leveraging his prior job experience. His relentless dedication paid off as he tirelessly worked towards realizing his dream. While our venture was still in its nascent stage, witnessing even a fraction of Ethan's vision materialize filled me with profound joy. Our happiness only multiplied with the arrival of our healthy baby boy a year into Ethan's entrepreneurial journey. My parents shared in our elation, frequently visiting us despite the lengthy journey from their home to ours. We opted not to inform Ethan's parents of our son's birth, certain that their indifference would remain unchanged. Their silence following our earlier confrontation offered a sense of relief, freeing us from the burdensome ties of a strained relationship. Several months later, as the global pandemic of the new coronavirus swept across the world, our country declared a state of emergency, urging citizens to stay indoors. News broadcasts were inundated with discussions of the pandemic's impact, particularly on industries such as restaurants and tourism. My heart ached for those affected, though I couldn't help but wonder about Ethan's father's package tour company. Yet it was a passing thought, and any satisfaction I derived from imagining its plight was fleeting. Despite the challenging circumstances, Ethan's business flourished. While the initial phase of our entrepreneurial journey saw some financial instability, recent months had brought a surge in income, surpassing even Ethan's earnings as an employee. Our future looked promising, a testament to our resilience in the face of adversity. During this period, Ethan began receiving numerous calls from his parents' home. Despite the persistent attempts at communication, Ethan appeared determined to avoid any interaction, intentionally ignoring the calls and disregarding voicemails left behind. I often reassured him, "You don't need to worry about me. It's all right to reach out to them." While I held a deep-seated disdain for his family, I couldn't shake the guilt of causing Ethan to sever ties with his own parents. Yet Ethan remained resolute in his stance, affirming, "Amy is my top priority, not my parents. If they can't accept you, regardless of their parental status, I can't hold them in high regard." I felt a mix of remorse and admiration for Ethan's unwavering loyalty. Despite Ethan's steadfast avoidance, the persistence of his parents was relentless. Daily calls went unanswered, and then one day, a letter arrived from his family home, bearing a startling message. "Our business is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and urgent financial discussions are necessary," it read. Their audacity was staggering, considering the estranged relationship they had imposed. We refused to entertain their demands, opting instead to let them face the consequences of their actions. "Let them face the repercussions of their decisions," I remarked. Soon enough, my own phone began to ring incessantly. Occupied with work, I couldn't attend the calls, but a voicemail left a clear indication of Ethan's continued avoidance. It seemed they had resorted to contacting me despite my explicit instructions to the contrary. Reluctantly, I listened to the message left on my voicemail, which simply stated, "Is this Amy's number? If Ethan persists in his silence, I'll visit in person. Let him know." 2 days following the voicemail, Ethan and I found ourselves enjoying a rare day off together at home. Just as we settled in after lunch, the doorbell chimed, signaling an unexpected visitor. Peering through the monitor, I was met with the sight of my 4 in-laws standing at the doorstep. Surprised, I looked at Ethan, who let out a weary sigh. "We could just ignore them. They'll eventually give up," he suggested. However, I couldn't shake the sense of pity. "They've come all this way. It wouldn't hurt to let them in," I countered. After a brief moment of contemplation, Ethan relented, unlocking the door to face whatever awaited us on the other side. Pitiful. Never would I entertain such thoughts about our cunning in-laws. I resolved silently, deliberately withholding the voicemail's revelation from Ethan. Everything was orchestrated to draw them into our home. My faint surprise at their arrival was a well-rehearsed act. I knew their persistence would eventually lead them to our doorstep. There was a method to my apparent madness. The true retaliation had yet to unfold, and it was time for a showdown. as the entire in-law clan stood at our front door, marching in without restraint upon entry. I couldn't help but express my exasperation. Is it really that difficult to just open a door? It's simply uncouth, I remarked with thinly veiled frustration. Observing our son engrossed in play with his toys on the floor, Ethan's mother couldn't resist a remark. "Whose child is this?" she inquired. "He's our son," I replied matter-of-factly. "Ah, I recall now. Since you insisted we cease contact, I saw no need to inform you of his arrival." "Clearly, your interest is lacking," she retorted dismissively. Her contemptuous gaze met mine, and she muttered disparagingly under her breath. I found myself relishing a moment and turned to address Ethan's father. "What brings you here today?" A courtesy call would have been appreciated, I stated, my tone tinged with sarcasm. Ethan's father bristled at my remark. "Didn't you receive the letter?" he retorted sharply. "You mean the one that arrived 2 days ago?" I countered, noting the frustration in his tone. "If you had bothered to read it, you'd know we required urgent communication," he snapped back, his anger palpable. Swiftly, I retorted, "You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us anymore, so I assumed contacting you was unnecessary." Suppressing a grin as I faced the stern quartet, I noticed Ethan, my husband, remaining silent, allowing me to speak my mind freely. It was characteristic of him to gauge the situation adeptly. It seemed unfathomable that he was raised by parents lacking such basic sensibilities. Abruptly, my father-in-law's demeanor shifted, transitioning to a pleading tone. "Please apologize for the past. The ongoing COVID situation has devastated our travel business. With cancellations piling up and no new bookings in sight, we're facing ruin. Can't you assist me with some financial aid?" In response, I maintained, "While I empathize with your predicament, I cannot readily aid someone who previously disavowed any connection with me. However, genuine displays of sincerity might sway my decision." Outraged, my father-in-law attempted intimidation, his expression contorted in fury. Unfazed, I resolved to handle the situation on my terms. "You're free to leave if you don't agree," I declared calmly. As my father-in-law persisted in pleading, beseeching me for assistance, I remained resolute. Eventually, he implored the others to apologize, leading to a collective plea from the entire group. In response, I politely declined their appeals, maintaining my composure. Enraged, my father-in-law slammed his hand on the table, his anger palpable as he grabbed my collar, accusing me of arrogance amid his attempts at reconciliation. Taken aback by his sudden aggression, I was about to intervene when Ethan stepped in, asserting, "Dad, don't lay a hand on Amy." My father-in-law retorted, "You're choosing your wife over your parents' plea." Ethan remained firm, stating, "Amy is my priority. I can't condone mistreatment towards her, even from my own parents. I won't accept superficial apologies just for money. If you can't sincerely apologize to Amy, then leave." Enraged by Ethan's stance, my father-in-law lashed out, landing a punch squarely on Ethan's face. Shocked and struggling to comprehend the violence unfolding, I attempted to reason with my father-in-law. But he was beyond reason, relentlessly kicking Ethan as he lay on the ground. Desperate to intervene, I tried to restrain my father-in-law, but he shrugged me off, causing me to collide with the table, resulting in a painful impact to my head. As I touched the back of my head, I felt the warmth of blood trickling down my fingers. The other 3 family members, frozen in shock, watched as my father-in-law continued his rampage, demanding money and ransacking the room. In a moment of desperation, I opened the balcony window and cried out for help to the passersby below, screaming that I was in danger. Within minutes, the police arrived. Upon their arrival, my father-in-law swiftly changed his demeanor, feigning innocence and dismissing the chaos as a misunderstanding. He attempted to paint me as intoxicated and delusional, trying to downplay his violent outburst with a disarming smile. I recounted to the officer, "Please apprehend this man. He assaulted both my husband and me, and he's been ransacking our home, demanding money." In response, my father-in-law vehemently denied the accusations and, with a burst of anger, punched a hole in the wall. Without hesitation, the officers arrested him on the spot. Subsequently, the other 3 family members were also taken in for questioning. It became apparent that my father-in-law would spend some time in jail. Thankfully, Ethan only sustained a minor injury, a cut and bruise on his cheek that healed quickly. However, the wound on the back of my head required 10 stitches, turning out to be more serious than initially thought. While I feel a pang of guilt for Ethan's injury, a sense of relief washes over me knowing that my in-laws have ceased their demands for money, possibly reflecting on their actions. As I later discover, my father-in-law initially spoke highly of me, but my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's jealousy led them to manipulate him and my brother-in-law into treating me poorly. It's astounding how envy can alter one's behavior so drastically, leading to unforeseen consequences. It serves as a sobering reminder of the unpredictable nature of human emotions and the potential repercussions that follow. As anticipated, my in-laws faced financial ruin, their business collapsed, and their home was repossessed. Now, they reside in a modest apartment, both nearing their 70s and struggling to secure employment. My brother-in-law, once privileged by his father's position, now languishes in a cycle of gambling at the casino, nearing 50 with no marketable skills. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law's attempts at job hunting are thwarted by her demanding demeanor, leaving her confined to their home. Following that turbulent incident, my father retired, prompting a decision for my parents and us to cohabit. Surprisingly, it was Ethan who proposed this arrangement out of concern for my parents' well-being in their twilight years. With my return to work, my parents graciously care for our son during the day, providing me with a sense of security in juggling childcare and my career. Surrounded by my beloved husband, caring parents, and our cherished son, life couldn't be more fulfilling. I am determined never to take this happiness for granted and to always remain grateful for the blessings bestowed upon us. My husband's estate, valued at $80 million along with this house, will be inherited by me as we have no children. My sister-in-law's demeanor is always a challenge to contend with. My name is Emma, a 45-year-old who works part-time. My husband and I are blessed with 2 sons, one a senior and the other a sophomore in high school. The elder one is currently preparing for his college entrance exams, aspiring to follow his passion for law. His ambition was ignited at a tender age, likely influenced by my brother Oliver, who is a seasoned lawyer. A few years back, Oliver established his own law firm, which my eldest son admires greatly. From his early years, my son demonstrated a knack for academic excellence, a trait that Oliver wholeheartedly encouraged upon learning of his nephew's aspirations. Whenever they meet, my son reaffirms his goal to emulate his uncle's legal career, to which Oliver responds with a warm chuckle, urging him to swiftly pursue his dreams and walk in his footsteps. When my brother, who was married but childless, came to visit, he delighted in playing with my sons and showering them with affection. His wife, a woman a decade his junior, kept her distance from our family, rarely gracing our home with her presence. As a result, our interactions with her were few and far between. My brother and I endured the loss of our parents at a young age, leading him to step into a parental role when I was on the brink of marriage. Soon after my wedding, he followed suit and tied the knot himself. My husband and I felt reassured when we learned of my brother's intention to marry a younger woman. However, upon meeting his fiancée, I was taken aback by her perpetually sullen demeanor. We had anticipated joyous exchanges, considering she was about to marry into our family, yet her expression remained persistently glum as she regarded us. In the presence of my brother and his fiancée, I offered a superficial compliment, saying, "You two make a great pair." Yet my true sentiments emerge only in the quiet moments at home with my husband. I couldn't shake off the curiosity about why she seemed so discontented. As their marriage was sealed, my husband echoed my concerns, remarking with a hint of worry she didn't seem particularly joyful as a bride. "It's a bit concerning, isn't it?" Shortly before their wedding, my brother tied the knot with his 10 years younger fiancée. To celebrate, my husband, our children, and I paid them a visit at their newly acquired house. The grandeur of the place left me in awe, a testament to my brother's success as a law firm owner. However, the absence of my sister-in-law raised eyebrows. In jest, my husband quipped to my brother, "Has your wife already abandoned ship?" Though meant in good humor, the tension in my brother's reaction left us both uneasy. According to him, whenever there's trouble, his wife retreats to her parents' home. Today, she stayed over to celebrate her mother's birthday. My husband's expression drooped, perhaps regretting his attempt at humor. Then, out of the blue, my brother posed a serious question with a poker face. "If I were ever unable to have children, would you consider letting me adopt one of yours?" I initially brushed it off as a jest, but my brother's earnest demeanor suggested otherwise. Stunned by the unexpected proposal, I found myself unable to respond, while my husband, with a chuckle, replied, "Who knows what the future holds? Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. If you're serious, and if our children are comfortable with it, we can discuss it then." Though my husband seemed to take it lightly, I couldn't shake off the underlying concerns about both the adoption suggestion and the strained relationship between my brother and his wife. It wasn't my place to interfere in their marital issues, but I couldn't help but worry. Subsequently, whether it was our visits to my brother's home or his visits to ours, he always came alone. His wife was conspicuously absent, further fueling my apprehensions. My brother never brought up his wife, so I refrained from prying into their relationship. After over a decade of marriage, her presence faded into obscurity in my mind. This year, as my eldest son's acceptance into his dream law school was celebrated at our house, my brother broached the topic of adoption once again. "Just as I mentioned before, would you consider allowing me to adopt one of your children?" he inquired. Their inability to conceive led him to revisit the idea. The last time we discussed it, they were newlyweds, so there was no urgency. Yet this time, my brother's tone conveyed seriousness. Despite the weight of the proposal, my husband's response was swift and nonchalant. "Would you prefer our eldest son, considering his ambition to become a lawyer?" he quipped. While my husband's manner seemed casual, I remained cautious, mindful of the profound impact such a decision would have on our sons' lives. Even though my brother, their uncle, would be adopting them, I couldn't shake the worry about my sister-in-law's potential treatment of my sons, who wouldn't be her own flesh and blood. Seeking reassurance, I cautiously asked my brother, "Is your wife on board with the adoption?" His response, accompanied by a wry smile, was somewhat comforting. "Don't fret over her. We've discussed it already," he assured me. While I felt relieved knowing they had addressed the matter, I couldn't reach a decision immediately. Instead, I resolved to involve my sons in the discussion and let them weigh in, considering they were already in high school and capable of making their own choices. We left the matter unresolved that day, but a few days later, I received an urgent call from my brother's lawyer's office. They informed me that he had collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Frantically, I made my way there, only to find the law firm staff anxiously awaiting news. It appeared my brother had suffered a stroke at work and was now unconscious. Once I arrived, the law firm staff departed, leaving me to confront the worrying situation alone. The law firm staff also mentioned they couldn't reach my sister-in-law. I tried calling the landline, but received no answer, and I didn't have her cell phone number. Eventually, my husband and younger son arrived, but still there was no luck reaching her. It was my younger son who stumbled upon a smartphone amidst my brother's belongings. With some effort, we managed to unlock it and began searching for her contact details. When she finally picked up the call from that phone, her response was laced with anger. "I warned you not to call again. I'll take legal action," she snapped. Attempting to convey urgency amidst her tirade, I interjected, "It's Emma, Oliver's sister. My brother has collapsed and is in the hospital." Her tone softened upon realizing it was me on the line. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I mistook you for Oliver. You said he collapsed?" she inquired. After updating her on my brother's condition and the hospital he was admitted to, her response took a surprisingly casual turn. "I'm unable to come to the hospital right now due to prior commitments. Please keep me informed," she requested before abruptly ending the call. I couldn't help but wonder if my sister-in-law had more pressing matters to attend to, especially considering her husband's illness. With the realization that she wouldn't be of any assistance, we resolved to care for my brother ourselves. Since my eldest son had completed his university entrance exams and was spending most of his time at home, he took on the responsibility of visiting my brother daily on my behalf. Despite our efforts, my brother remained unconscious and in critical condition. However, my sister-in-law never reached out or made an appearance at the hospital. Nearly a week after my brother was admitted, I made another attempt to contact her. This time, she answered the phone promptly, her tone oddly cheerful. "What's the matter? Is he dead?" she exclaimed, lacking any semblance of empathy. Struggling to contain my anger, I responded calmly, "He's still alive. Why haven't you visited him at the hospital?" Her response, dripping with indifference, only fueled my frustration. "I'm neither a doctor nor a miracle worker. There's nothing I can do for his recovery," she retorted dismissively. Her callous demeanor pushed me over the edge and I hung up the phone, unable to suppress my growing rage. Suspicions began to brew within me regarding my brother's motives for wanting to adopt one of my sons. It dawned on me that perhaps he had resigned himself to the idea of not having children with his wife, indicating possible discord in their marriage. Curiosity led me to inquire about how they met after their marriage was finalized, to which my brother revealed they had been introduced through a marriage counseling agency. The revelation stirred a mix of emotions within me, especially the notion that my sister-in-law may have married my brother solely for the security of his profession as a lawyer and the promise of a comfortable life. This thought fueled my indignation further, but when I confided in my husband, his response cut deeper. If Oliver were to pass away in his current state, his wife would inherit the entire estate given their lack of children, he remarked callously. As my brother joined us to celebrate my eldest son's recent achievements and broached the topic of adoption, I couldn't shake the suspicion that perhaps his interest stemmed from considerations of inheritance rather than genuine familial intentions. I wish I could have reached a decision then and there, but the situation left me feeling powerless. After my brother's departure that day, I casually broached the topic with my two sons. To my surprise, my younger son expressed eagerness to be adopted, viewing it as a ticket to an easier life under Oliver's wing. Unlike his older brother, he seemed content to go with the flow, lacking clear aspirations for the future. I had anticipated my eldest son, who admired his brother, to follow suit, but his response caught me off guard. "I don't want to be adopted," he declared firmly. "As the eldest, it's my responsibility to take care of you, Mom, and Dad." His words filled me with pride, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that my eldest son, with his ambition to become a lawyer, was the more suitable candidate for adoption. Although I longed to initiate the adoption process on behalf of my unconscious brother, the circumstances thwarted my efforts. Despite my reluctance to claim any share of my brother's inheritance, I couldn't bear the thought of a single penny falling into the hands of my sister-in-law, who seemed to be eagerly awaiting his demise. I could only hold on to the hope of my brother's recovery, but it never came to fruition. Days later, he passed away, leaving me with the solemn duty of informing my sister-in-law. "My brother has passed away. Can we arrange a funeral?" I conveyed the somber news. To my surprise, her response was oddly cheerful. "You have the final say. Just please don't involve me in any formalities," she replied before abruptly ending the call. Feeling a surge of frustration, I held back my emotions as my husband and I took charge of planning the funeral. With assistance from the law firm's staff, we navigated through the arrangements. While my husband expressed concerns about the firm's future, my brother had already ensured its stability by entrusting its management to a capable individual. Thus, the firm would continue to operate seamlessly as a corporation. At the funeral, the turnout was overwhelming, with countless wreaths brought in to pay respects. The hall overflowed with mourners, a testament to the profound impact my brother had on so many lives. As the funeral unfolded, I found myself once again marveling at the incredible person my brother had been. Alongside me, my son lent a hand in the somber proceedings. However, his mood darkened upon witnessing the notable figures in attendance, presidents of major corporations, politicians, and other dignitaries. "I should have been the one adopted," he lamented bitterly. "I never realized how remarkable he truly was." My husband and I empathized with his sorrow, understanding the weight of his realization. As I fulfilled my role as a pallbearer, no one questioned the absence of my sister-in-law, nor was it brought up in conversation. I couldn't help but wonder if we were the only ones privy to the knowledge of my brother's marriage. They hadn't had a wedding ceremony, instead they simply embarked on a honeymoon. It dawned on me that even our relatives might have been unaware of their marital status. Reflecting on the situation, I couldn't help but harbor regrets. If only they hadn't married, there wouldn't be a need for a wife who failed to show up at her husband's funeral, and I lamented not allowing my brother to adopt my younger son sooner, fearing that she might seize control of my brother's estate with the support of the law firm's staff. The funeral for my brother had concluded, and I extended invitations for everyone to gather at his house for a meal, expressing my gratitude. "Thanks to all of you, my brother will be able to rest in peace," I said, my voice laden with sorrow. As we mourned together, my sister-in-law made a sudden appearance, clad in a flashy pink coat, as if timed to coincide with the conclusion of the funeral. Addressing her with a mix of surprise and suspicion, I asked, Why have you chosen this moment to come?" With a wide grin on her face, she spoke loudly for all to hear. "As my husband's wife, I inherit his estate, valued at $80 million, along with this house. With no children in the picture, everything belongs to me." Her triumphant declaration prompted laughter from my brother's colleagues, leaving us puzzled by their reaction. My sister-in-law shot them a glare and scolded, "What's so funny? How rude." Her smirk quickly faded when one of the lawyers interjected, "We're aware that you're officially divorced." The revelation hit me like a thunderbolt. "You were divorced?" I exclaimed incredulously upon hearing the news the day before my brother's collapse. Glancing at my sister-in-law's visage, I saw a chilling expression etched across her features as she locked eyes with the individuals who had unveiled the truth. As she gritted her teeth, another lawyer interjected, "I've also heard that you were ordered to pay alimony due to the affair that led to the divorce. It's unavoidable." Furious, my sister-in-law directed her glare at the lawyer who spoke, snapping, "I'm not obligated to pay alimony anymore. There's no one left to pay." Her words dripped with disdain, but she was swiftly rebutted by the legal expert. "The right to alimony also transfers upon inheritance, so you'll still owe it to Emma, the sole inheritor." It dawned on me for the first time that I was the sole inheritor of my brother's estate. With their divorce finalized and our parents no longer alive, I was left as the last remaining family member. She seemed to grasp the reality of the situation, her expression morphing into one of horror as she locked eyes with me, prompting me to instinctively step back. Yet her demeanor remained defiant as she resumed her tirade. "Don't I deserve half of the estate now that the divorce is settled?" A lawyer, looking dismayed, interjected, "Didn't Oliver provide you with funds upon the finalization of the divorce?" "I have the receipt certificate." Another lawyer chimed in, "He also acquired a house prior to the marriage, so it isn't subject to property division." I found a sense of satisfaction in witnessing her being lectured by the lawyers. Despite her protestations, she appeared to recall something and chuckled lightly as she continued, "There's still the life insurance. I should be the beneficiary." Her resilience impressed me, navigating through a hostile environment where everyone seemed to be against her. Then, with a smirk, she added, "I changed the beneficiary of Oliver's life insurance to myself." However, the lawyer promptly refuted her claim regarding the life insurance, stating, "Oliver was a resolute individual, so it's likely he made the change upon finalizing the divorce." As I sifted through my brother's belongings, I stumbled upon the life insurance policy, but my sister-in-law caught sight of it. Swiftly, she snatched the document from my grasp, her impatience evident as she scrutinized the beneficiary. However, her demeanor shifted to one of disappointment as she handed the certificate back to me, her shoulders slumping in defeat. It was then that I noticed the beneficiary was me. Realizing her efforts were futile, my sister-in-law blurted out her true sentiments without filter. "I married a lawyer because I thought he was wealthy. But all I got was a pittance, and now I have to pay alimony. It's a colossal mistake." In response, the lawyer's expression hardened as he retorted. Oliver expressed similar sentiments. He regretted seeking the counsel of a marriage counselor, lamenting the monumental mistake he had made. Although my brother never confided such sentiments to me, his honesty was well known among his colleagues and subordinates. Faced with undeniable facts, my sister-in-law turned on her heel and departed from my brother's house. As time passed, she found herself obligated to pay alimony in installments, despite lacking stable employment. Desperate to fulfill her financial obligations, she hastily sought out employment opportunities. However, her lack of commitment led to a string of short-lived jobs. In a desperate attempt to secure quick wealth, she returned to the marriage counseling agency and set her sights on a wealthy individual. Deceiving him with promises of financial gain through marriage, she exploited his trust and attempted to swindle him. Yet, her scheme unraveled swiftly when the man saw through her deceit and reported her to the authorities. Subsequently, she was arrested for marriage fraud, facing the consequences of her actions. According to a lawyer from my brother's law firm who disclosed the truth, no alimony was ever paid to me. When I consulted the lawyer regarding the situation, I was informed of the recent developments. It was in May when the lawyer relayed the news that my sister-in-law had been apprehended. With her arrest, the likelihood of receiving alimony payments seemed slim in the foreseeable future. However, alimony wasn't my foremost concern. What I truly desired was to witness her facing the consequences of her actions and enduring a fate befitting her deeds. I firmly believe my brother would concur, which is why I wish for thorough police investigation into her other transgressions. I hope she's charged as a felon and brought to justice in court. Meanwhile, my family relocated to a house left behind by my brother, unexpectedly inheriting his property. My husband and sons were overjoyed at the prospect of moving into a spacious house, a stark contrast to our previous cramped apartment. Amidst the excitement, my eldest son, fueled by newfound determination, immersed himself in his law studies. Observing the interactions between his brother's colleagues and subordinates, he felt a strong yearning to pursue a career in law. Though never formally adopted by my brother, I hold on to the hope that he will carry forth my brother's legacy and excel as a lawyer, just as he aspired to be. However, my younger son harbored a sense of disappointment upon learning that I had inherited my brother's entire estate. "I wish I had been adopted by uncle so I could have inherited everything," he confessed candidly. Despite his words carrying a hint of jest, his smile betrayed a